I am Commander Elara Reid, but for weeks I was just Recruit E1 Riley, a shadow sweeping the corridors of the Navy's largest nuclear aircraft carrier. My mop was my cloak, and Admiral Vance's humiliation was my perfect disguise. He called me a nuisance, and ignored me while I secretly deciphered enemy communication codes hidden in the trash of his own command centre. I was there to hunt a sleeper agent planning to deactivate our missiles, but the greatest obstacle was the arrogance of my own commanding officer. You will witness the silent war I fought, cleaning the floor while the fate of the fleet hung in the balance. And you will discover the exact moment I had to drop the mop to save everyone, proving that the threat was where no one dared to look. If my story of sacrifice, contempt and vengeance has gripped you this far, it's because you understand the weight of a secret. I revealed the truth, but the cost of it is what you have to see. Subscribe to the channel now and hit the bell so you don't miss this epic saga, where every twist is more shocking than the last. And I want to know, do you think the Admiral's contempt was justified, or was he the most blind person on the ship? Leave your comment with the hashtag #ThePriceOfTheDisguise. I swear this is the best story of a turnaround in intelligence that you will watch this week. Come on, join me in this. The silence of the USS Triton is an illusion. I, Commander Elara Reid, only codename Valkyrie, learned that a warship never sleeps. It merely breathes a slower, more oppressive rhythm. But that morning in Norfolk, Virginia, with the cold, salty mist hanging over the colossal aircraft carrier, the real war began in my head, not in the ocean. I was no longer the elite analyst. I was Recruit E1 Riley, the newest and supposedly most inept cleaning specialist. My ill-fitting uniform, a few sizes too large, was my armour of invisibility. The mission was a strategic humiliation, to unmask a sleeper agent, a high-ranking traitor, who was planning to deactivate the Triton's missile system, its heart, during a routine exercise. To observe the leadership, I had to be in the place the leadership would never look, the floor. My first contact with the target was in the officers' meeting room, the conflittorio, war room briefing room. I had my bucket and mop, which to the world were cleaning tools, but for me the bucket was a radio frequency scanner, and the mop, my encrypted data collection extender. I pretended to be focused on a non-existent stain near the imposing main chair. I had to be a machine, a thoughtless background figure. The door opened with that silent violence, and he walked in, Admiral Vance, tall, impeccable authority personified, with the coldness of someone who knows they are unquestionable. He was accompanied by Lieutenant Commander Miller, a man from communications, thin and tense. Vance spoke in a grave voice about radar coordination failures, the first indication that the enemy was already testing the ship's defences. I was bent over when Vance, gesticulating impatiently, took a step back and hit the side of my bucket. It wasn't an accident. It was the physical manifestation of his contempt. My wet mop fell and stained the tip of his polished leather boot. The oxygen left the room. I froze. I felt the forced shame of my character, Recruit Riley, dominating my muscles. I'm sorry, Admiral. I am so sorry. He didn't even look at the mop. He looked at me. From above, with a look that translated into block letters. You are a nuisance. Pay attention, Recruit, he said, his voice as sharp as ice shards. Or I'll have to send you to clean the flight deck with a toothbrush. Do not disrupt the operation. You are just the cleaning recruit here. He turned, leaving Miller to stare at me with disgusting superiority, and walked out. The humiliation hurt, yes, but Valkyrie's glacial anger set in. Vance underestimated me, and he would pay for it. Not with his life, but with the truth. My first encrypted communication to Liam Chen was sent. CIC seemed strangely restricted. Target in denial mode. Confirming urgency. Valkyrie. The days on the Triton morphed into a routine of steel, diesel, and isolation. I used the invisibility of my rank to map every corridor, every panel, every blind spot. To the crew, I was Recruit Riley, moving with my head down. To me, every step was a calculation, every sweep a data scan. My goal was singular. The Combat Information Centre, CIC, the ship's nerve centre. I needed to know where the traitor had planted their seed. Access to the CIC for maintenance personnel is almost nil. But I didn't need to enter. I needed to inspect the external vulnerabilities. I got my chance during shift change, claiming to be looking for misplaced tools. I slipped into the secondary corridor, where the CIC backup wiring was located. The air there was heavy, smelling of ozone and metal. What I saw was not in the maintenance manuals. There was an access panel that should have an intact security sticker. It was there, appearing sealed, but my analyst's eyes saw what Admiral Vance wouldn't see even if he were standing right in front of me. There was a microscopic, clean scratch on the metal next to the sticker, the mark of a tool that opened the panel with surgical precision and then heat-sealed the sticker. A high-level trick to mask the physical breach. The agent was a professional. And they were inside. The exact moment I was capturing the image of the scratch with the microcamera on my wrist, I heard the familiar sound of footsteps behind me. And the cold voice. "What are you doing here, recruit? This is a restricted area. Do you know what kind of information you have access to?" It was Miller. The Lieutenant Commander of Communications caught me red-handed. He was my main suspect due to his nervousness and always lurking around. I turned, my face white, faking the terror of a rookie caught in a serious failure. "Sorry, sir. The sergeant said the manual requires checking to see if the wiring isn't obstructing the passage. I was just following orders, sir. I didn't mean to cause any trouble. Miller didn't buy it." He narrowed his eyes. "Right. Keep your hands where your eyes should be, on your bucket and mop. We don't need your analysis in the operation. Don't get involved where you weren't called." The scorn in his smile was cutting. He let me go, but I knew he noticed me. And that was a mistake he couldn't afford to make. The photo of the scratch was urgently sent to Liam. Confirmed. Physical infiltration at panel C7. Ask Oni to check CIC camera records for tampering over the past month. Liam's response came in the early hours, confirming my suspicions. Security cameras around CIC were updated. Records falsified. Continue the hunt. Time is your enemy, Valkyrie. I knew I needed the last link, the logical proof. If the agent was on the ship, and the panel was breached, the evidence would be somewhere no one would inspect. The trash. The trash never lies. The darkness and isolation of the lower decks in the pre-dawn hours became my refuge. The ship was asleep, but I was hyper-alert. I used my nightly cleaning itinerary to reach the CIC's waste disposal room. The incinerator room was hot, humid, and filled with the smell of burnt metal. I had a window of only 15 minutes. While rummaging through the trash bags, torn envelopes, food scraps, my analyst's mind processed the volume of discarded information. I was looking for something that didn't make sense. And then I felt it. My fingers touched something subtly different. A thin piece of paper, folded 4 times, at the bottom of a bag. It wasn't a memo or a standard form. It was a random sequence of letters and numbers, hand-scrawled. A cryptography reference code, Protocol T9. I knew I was holding the key to the missile deactivation. I barely managed to hide the paper in my inner pocket before I had to pretend the work was finished. The adrenaline was peaking. Later, in the relative privacy and security of a deactivated utility cabin, I analysed the code. It belonged to a specific enemy communication, known for naval cyber attacks. The message was being prepared to be activated from within. It was at that moment that the mission forced me to make the toughest decision. Nearby, in the medical corridor, I heard the groans of a young injured sailor crying out for help. The urgency in his cries was real. My commander's soul screamed at me to help him, but I was off my route in an isolated sector. If I were seen there, the mission would be compromised. The sleeper agent would realise that the cleaning recruit was no ordinary recruit. With a weight of guilt I still feel today, I walked right past him. I sent an anonymous coded message to the infirmary as soon as I could, ensuring he would be found. But the cost of having ignored a colleague to save thousands of others would constantly remind me that sacrifice was the only real thing in this farce. I connected with Liam, my voice tense over the encrypted radio. "Rook, the problem isn't outside. It's in here. The T9 code has been activated, and Admiral Vance is somehow implicated. Valkyrie, what do you have?" Liam's voice echoed, filled with urgency. "DC is panicking. We need a name." "I have a code, Liam, and an agent who's a professional. And I have a cold intuition about Vance. He humiliated me again today, called me the cleaning recruit. He's in my way. I sent the reference sequence. I needed something that directly connected the conspiracy to Vance. Something that would give me legitimacy to confront him without being arrested for insubordination. My only hope? To return to the lair of my humiliation, I needed to find the key to the code on his bookshelf. I needed the book. And I would have to challenge Admiral Vance in his own territory, under the guise of total submission, one more time. Time was running out. My head was spinning with the sequence of numbers and letters from Protocol T9. I knew the key to the deactivation code was somewhere on the ship, and my intuition, sharpened by years of ONI training, pointed to the one place that made no sense, Admiral Vance's office. The man who called me the cleaning recruit was, unintentionally, providing me with the pieces of the puzzle. The next morning, I was back on that thick carpet and near those leather chairs, pushing my cart with the false dignity of an obedient cleaner. The smell of strong coffee was my warning sign. Vance was there, focused on papers, but I felt his eyes watching me, waiting for me to make the smallest mistake. My attention was on the bookshelf behind him. Among operation manuals and military reports, there it was, an old, dark-covered volume on Cold War naval history. The book stood out. Vance was on the phone, engaged in a tense discussion about routes. It was my only chance. In a movement that lasted less than a second, the agility of someone who has spent their life crawling in ducts and restricted rooms, I slid out the book, opened it to the marked page, and photographed the content with the micro camera on my wrist, all while wiping the desk with a damp cloth. Page 72 was not a code, but a historical quote about dissimulation in battle. My mind connected the quote with the T9 sequence. The quote was the cryptographic key. The Admiral hung up the phone and turned around. He caught me looking at the bookshelf. His eyes narrowed in pure disdain, and he didn't need words to punish me. Recruit. His voice was a gunshot. I said clean, not rid my library. You are here to serve. That is why the Navy recruited you. You are a weak link, Recruit Riley, and on this ship, I do not tolerate weakness. He approached the desk, inspecting my work with a rigour I knew was intentional. And this screen, Recruit, he spat, pointing to the monitor with a firm finger. It is smudged. Unacceptable. Our fleet operates with laser precision. Your work is a reflection of that. You have disappointed me again, cleaning recruit. I maintained my posture of a reprimanded rookie. I mumbled my apologies, but internally I was celebrating. Vance did not realise that by humiliating me and keeping me busy with trivialities, he had just given me the key to decipher the threat that would bring him down. I had the quote. I had the proof that the conspiracy used naval history as the basis for communication. I returned to cleaning the monitor, but inside I had already left, sending the code and the page reference to Liam. He would confirm. The sleeper agent was Lieutenant Commander Miller, and the deactivation command would be executed the next morning. I had less than 24 hours. The revelation of Miller's name hit me like an electric shock. The pale, zealous man who questioned me in the corridor was the traitor. He had positioned himself close to Vance, gaining his trust and covering up the physical breach of the panel in the CIC. The threat was not a system failure. It was a premeditated attack from within. I was on the flight deck, the strong wind whipping my uniform. I pretended to clean an oil spill while my eyes tracked Miller. He was visibly agitated, speaking into a radio with an intensity that seemed forced. I watched, noting every tick, every hand movement. It was then that the reality of my mission collided with my humanity. I was sweeping, maintaining my role, when a young sailor, fresh out of training, struggled with a heavy box, nearly falling. The Navy has no time for weakness, and he was about to suffer a serious accident. For a brief instant, I stopped being Valkyrie. I dropped the mop and helped him balance the box. "Thank you, Recruit," he said, relieved. I looked at the ocean, the immensity we were about to protect. Don't be afraid of the sea, Recruit. Be afraid of what you cannot see. I smiled, a cold, quick smile, and returned to my work. That small act of kindness was what anchored me, the reason I had to maintain my composure in the face of Vance and Miller. But the moment of peace was broken. I felt a chill, the animal instinct of being hunted. A crew member, in an impeccable uniform, watched me from afar with a professional intensity, not with contempt, but with focus. He was from Fleet Counterintelligence. I was an anomaly on their radar, an unknown infiltration. I was cornered between Miller, the enemy, and my own fleet, which saw me as a threat. I quickly manoeuvred to shake off the tail and isolated myself. There was no more time for subtleties. I needed to act, and for that I needed to alert Vance, even if he didn't know he was being alerted by his cleaner. I sent Liam the final status message. Agent identified Miller. Activation tomorrow. I am compromised by Fleet CI, no time. Must confront. Send my coded reports to Admiral Vance, to be opened only with confirmation of my codename. Time was running out. I knew Miller would try to get me out of the way before executing the deactivation command. I was right. My internal radio beeped. Recruit Riley. Report to the central pantry immediately. Order from Lieutenant Commander Miller. I repeat, immediately. He wanted to isolate me in the pantry, far from the CIC when the attack happened. I bypassed the order. I used my knowledge of the ship's layout to infiltrate the waste disposal room, where Miller felt secure to communicate. I hid in a deactivated utility cabin, waiting. And he came, nervous, pale. I heard the click of his communicator. The cleaning recruit has been taken off route, Miller whispered, his voice tense. The system is ready for sleep. In 30 minutes, the heart will be cut. The Admiral is in the CIC as scheduled. The package will be delivered. The heart, the missile system, the deactivation. I recorded everything. The proof was with me. At that moment, Liam Chen broke into my encrypted radio. Valkyrie only intercepted the order, but we cannot intervene directly. If we act now, we compromise global network security. You have 20 minutes until the point of no return. You are alone. The weight of loneliness and urgency hit me. 20 minutes. I had to confront them. I ran. Not with the clumsy haste of Riley, but with the cold, lethal determination of Valkyrie. I reached the CIC door. It was open. Inside, Vance and Miller were discussing the drill schedule. I burst into the room, forcing one last attempt at subtlety. My uniform was dirty, my breath laboured, but my voice was controlled. Excuse me, Admiral. Orders for emergency cleaning. Dust build-up in the main wiring could cause a malfunction. I need a few minutes. Vance turned, the fury in his eyes palpable. Recruit, you are under arrest. What in God's name are you doing here? I ignored Miller, who looked at me in a panic and moved towards a console, using coded language. Sir. My voice monotonous, like a machine. There is an unusual odour in the upstairs ventilation. It could be a power short. In the ship's core. I suggest you check the unusual wiring arrangement immediately. Sir, I use the keywords short, core, unusual arrangement, that only an advanced security analyst would understand. Vance looked at me, and for a split second I saw doubt in his eyes. He sensed the anomaly, but the pride of hierarchy and contempt for my figure won out. I don't care about the odour, recruit. He yelled, slamming his hand on the desk. Clean and get out! You are not authorised to conduct analysis here. You are the cleaning recruit. Get out! He handed me over to Miller. Search this recruit's belongings. It seems she has too much free time to think nonsense. Miller advanced, smiling. The game of dissimulation was over. I had to break the theatre. I had to reveal myself, even if it meant prison or court-martial. I took a step back and braced for the attack. I was no longer Recruit Riley. The hour of the final confrontation had arrived. Admiral Vance was about to discover that the person he despised the most was the only one who could save him. Miller's scornful smile was the final punctuation mark on my charade. He advanced, ready to carry out Vance's order, to search me and neutralise me, unaware that he was sealing his own fate. My final attempt to alert the Admiral, to use the subtle code, had been crushed by his pride and hierarchical blindness. He trusted his lieutenant commander and despised the cleaning recruit. There was no more time to be Riley. Do not touch me, Lieutenant Commander. My voice emerged, ice-cold, strong, and with an authority that would never be associated with a recruit. It wasn't a whisper. It was a command. The change was so abrupt that Miller froze, and Vance, in the centre of the Combat Information Centre, CIC, spun around, stunned. What? Miller hissed, his confusion instantly giving way to panic as he recognised the threat. I didn't wait. With every passing second, the enemy's countdown was ticking to deactivate the missile system. Miller tried to grab my wrist, but years of Oni unarmed combat training surfaced. I used his own impulsiveness against him. I spun, lowered my body, and executed a clean, precise sweep. Miller's body hit the metallic floor of the CIC with a thud that silenced every officer present. Vance stood still, paralysed. He looked at Miller, writhing on the floor, then at me, the cleaning recruit, who had just disarmed a superior officer with a ninja's precision. "Recruit," he yelled, the rage in his voice mixed with a hint of disbelief. "You are under military arrest! Who the hell do you think you are, sabotaging my command room?" I took a deep breath, my uniform stained with grease and dust. The stage was mine. The farce was over. "I am Commander Elara Reid, codename Valkyrie of the Office of Naval Intelligence," I declared, the authority in every syllable silencing the CIC completely. "And I am taking control of your command room, Admiral. Lieutenant Commander Miller is a sleeper agent, and he has less than 15 minutes to deactivate your missile system, the Triton's heart." The revelation hit Vance like a torpedo. His eyes widened, moving from anger to petrified shock, and finally to a glimmer of glacial fear. He could not believe that the nuisance he had humiliated was the only one who saw the betrayal. I ran to the main communication terminal. "The security protocol is rigorous, but my encrypted device bypassed the system." "Emergency-only signal from DC received," an officer said, his voice tense. "It's code Rook, Valkyrie confirmed." All colour drained from Vance's face. Denial was impossible. The main screen of the CIC, which displayed routes and weather data, was invaded by my data, the recording of Miller's confession and a text message flashing in red. "T9, deactivation in 13:45 minutes. My God. "The cleaning recruit," Vance mumbled, his voice failing. "The agent was programmed to disable missile control." "Admiral," I said without taking my eyes off the monitor, assuming the command role. There was no time for formalities. The wiring I tried to warn you about was Miller's hardware. He was deactivating the core while you were protecting him. Miller tried to crawl, but 2 sailors, finally awakened by the real urgency, immobilized him. "Admiral Vance," I ordered, using my name and codename to cement the authority. "Cancel the drill. Block all outgoing communications. Arrest Lieutenant Commander Miller now." Vance, a man of honour who recognised defeat and imminent disaster, did not hesitate. He pressed the buttons, his command voice returning, this time directed at the crew's panic. "Cancel drill. Maximum security alert. Arrest Miller, now!" The deactivation was aborted with less than 30 seconds remaining. The Triton was saved, not by its hierarchy, but by its cleaner. A week later, I was in Washington, D.C., wearing my immaculate Oni commander's dress uniform, free of any grease stains. The Navy headquarters office was luxurious, a total contrast to the cold corridors of the Triton. Vance was there. He was no longer furious. He was just tired. I delivered my final report, not a crumpled piece of paper, but a top-secret document detailing every step of the infiltration and the rescue of the fleet. Vance flipped through the report. I felt the weight of his reflection. He finally saw me, not as Recruit Riley, but as the officer who saved his ship. "Commander Reid," he began, his voice grave and devoid of any trace of contempt. He paused and looked me in the eye. There was respect and a profound sense of remorse. "I underestimated you. I humiliated you, called you the cleaning recruit, and you, with a bucket and a mop, saved my ship, my career, and thousands of lives." He placed the report on the desk. "My report to the Chief of Naval Operations will reflect your courage and your genius. And, in the future, I will never again ignore what appears to be invisible." I felt the coldness that had accompanied me throughout the mission dissipate. The mission was the most important thing. "Thank you, Admiral," I replied, allowing a cold, genuine smile, the first one he had seen. Intelligence, like cleaning, is often the work no one sees, but which ensures the system functions. "Mission accomplished. And don't worry about your monitor. I already cleaned it." Vance smiled in response, a smile of acceptance. Authority had changed hands, but the respect was mutual. I left the room, and Liam Chen was waiting for me in the hallway. He gave me a look of deep pride. "Valkyrie, you're a legend. What do you do now?" I looked at my uniform, then out the window where the Washington sun seemed a little warmer. "I'm going to take some time off, Liam, away from ships, from uniforms, away from the Admiral. I need to learn to be just Elara again, and not the cleaning recruit or Commander Valkyrie. The mission is over, but the lesson remains. Authority isn't in the badge, but in the vision. And I saw everything from the floor." I stopped speaking. If you have made it this far, it is because you have personally felt the weight of my mop and the pressure of holding the fate of a ship in your hands. I, Elara Reid, Commander Valkyrie, thank you for sailing with me on this mission. You have seen how much it costs to be invisible, and how high the price of being underestimated is. You witnessed the humiliation on the deck and the triumph in the CIC. Now I need your support for my next mission. If you were moved by my story, if you got chills from the twist in the CIC, subscribe to the channel now and hit the bell. This ensures you'll be the first to be alerted when I have to take on my next secret identity. And I want to know from you, what was the hardest moment for me? Admiral Vance's contempt, or having to ignore the injured sailor to maintain the disguise? Leave your opinion and use the hashtag #ThePriceOfValkyrie in the comments. Your participation is what motivates me to risk everything again. Thank you for watching until the end. I'll see you on the next mission. And remember, on the battlefield, the loudest weapon is not always the most dangerous one. Stay safe!